Robert Wagner finally reveals his long-kept secret about marriage to Natalie Wood. Robert Wagner was born on February 10, 1930, in Detroit, Michigan. His father, Robert Sr., was a successful steel executive, and his mother, Hazel, provided a comfortable, upper-middle-class upbringing. Young Robert Wagner wasn't necessarily destined for the spotlight, but fate intervened when the family moved to Los Angeles in 1937. Growing up in the affluent communities of Bel Air and Holmby Hills, the world of movie studios and movie stars wasn't just a distant dream. It was a tangible reality just beyond the Garden Gate. Robert Wagner attended military school, where he excelled in sports, particularly golf. He was popular, handsome, and seemed to possess an innate ease and charm. Yet, even in his youth, there was a sense of a young man navigating a privileged but perhaps emotionally reserved environment. The move to California exposed him to the fringes of the entertainment industry, sparking a nascent interest that would eventually pull him fully into its. Robert Wagner's entry into Hollywood wasn't through traditional acting schools or stage work. Instead, it happened almost by chance, fueled by proximity and opportunity. While working at various odd jobs around the 20th Century Fox lot to earn money, his striking good looks and undeniable charisma caught the eye of studio executives. It was the height of the studio system, where raw talent was scouted, molded, and packaged into stars. Robert Wagner fit the mold perfectly. He signed a contract with Fox in the early 1950s and began the typical studio grooming process: acting lessons, voice coaching, building a public image. His early roles were small, often uncredited parts in films like The Happy Years or The Frogmen. He paid his dues, learning the craft on set and navigating the competitive landscape of aspiring young actors. He wasn't an overnight sensation, but his steady work ethic and charming screen presence ensured he was noticed. He appeared in a string of B-movies and supporting roles, building experience and slowly gaining recognition. His youthful energy and handsome face making him a natural fit for the era's burgeoning demand for new leading men. These formative years were crucial, shaping him into the polished professional he would become, ready for the bigger opportunities that lay just around the corner. The turning point for Robert Wagner came in the mid-1950s. Roles in films like Stars and Stripes Forever, 1952, and Titanic, 1953 showcased his potential. But it was perhaps his starring role as the titular character in the epic adventure Prince Valiant, 1954, that solidified his position as a viable leading man. The film, though not a massive critical success, cemented his image as a dashing, heroic figure capable of carrying a major production. Throughout the rest of the 1950s and early 1960s, Robert Wagner appeared in a variety of genres, from war films Between Heaven and Hell to dramas A Kiss Before Dying and comedies Say One for Me. He worked with major stars and directors, learning from the best in the business. While not always a critical darling, he was consistently popular with audiences, a reliable and likable screen presence. As the studio system waned, Robert Wagner shrewdly transitioned to the burgeoning medium of television, a move that would guarantee his longevity and introduce him to a new generation of viewers. Series like It Takes a Thief, where he played a suave cat burglar recruited by the government, showcased his charm and wit and became a significant hit. This was followed by Switch, 1975-1978, another successful crime drama. And perhaps his most enduring television success came later with Heart to Heart, 1979-1984. Where he played the effortlessly sophisticated Jonathan Hart alongside Stephanie Powers. These television roles redefined his career, establishing him as a charismatic, debonair star who could captivate audiences in their living rooms week after week. He was a survivor, an adaptable performer who navigated the changing landscape of Hollywood with remarkable grace and enduring appeal. Beyond the bright lights of the soundstage, Robert Wagner's personal life became a subject of intense public fascination, intertwined as it often was with his professional image. Before meeting the woman who would define his life and, tragically, his legacy, Robert Wagner had dated several prominent Hollywood figures, building a reputation as a charming and eligible bachelor. And then, there was Natalie Wood. The 1950s saw them cross paths at Hollywood functions. Robert Wagner remembers seeing Natalie at industry events and fashion shows before their official introduction. Hollywood's studio system brought them together. Studios often paired their contract players on dates to generate publicity. This old-fashioned matchmaking approach led to Wagner and Natalie's introduction. Their shared agent suggested a date in 1956, a common practice in Hollywood's golden era. This arranged meeting seemed like another studio obligation to Robert Wagner, But it changed his life. The agent picked the night of Natalie's 18th birthday. The timing let her step into adulthood with Robert Wagner by her side. By their studio-arranged date, Natalie had grown from an admiring child actress into a respected performer. This daughter of poor Russian immigrants had built her Hollywood career through hard work. Their first date happened on Wagner's yacht, a setting that would sadly mirror their tragic end decades later. Robert Wagner recalls they fell instantly in love during this boat trip. Their whirlwind courtship began that night. The couple married on December 28, 1957, in Scottsdale, Arizona, Wagner's parents' home. Their wedding drew so much attention that the Scottsdale Methodist Church covered its windows with butcher paper. This kept hundreds of onlookers and journalists from peeking inside. Their early days seemed like a perfect Hollywood story. Young, beautiful stars finding love on a moonlit yacht. Robert Wagner later reflected that their beginning had all the elements of a classic Hollywood romance. Yet their picture-perfect courtship held complexities. The carefully built image had cracks underneath. Natalie's career took off while Wagner faced professional challenges. She had 3 Oscar nominations before turning 25. His acting opportunities were nowhere near as promising. Natalie couldn't find ways to fix their marriage problems. Things got worse as Natalie's success grew. Their relationship turned into a cycle of fights. His self-doubt grew with their arguments, especially when Natalie started working on West Side Story, one of her most famous roles. The couple separated in 1961 and finalized their divorce in 1962. Both went on to marry others and have families. Natalie married producer Richard Gregson and had a daughter, Natasha. Robert Wagner married actress Marion Marshall and had 2 daughters, Katie and Sarah. Their lives diverged for a decade, but fate, in true Hollywood fashion, wasn't finished with them. A chance encounter at a 1970 dinner party sparked their path back to each other. Natalie was 6 months pregnant with her daughter Natasha from her marriage to British producer Richard Gregson. Robert Wagner had just separated from his second wife, Marion Marshall. Wagner drove behind Natalie's car that night to make sure she reached home safely, a gesture that reignited their connection. Natalie asked Robert Wagner a simple yet meaningful question about his happiness during this meeting. His words, "I'm happy you're having a baby," marked the start of their journey back together. Natalie and Gregson parted ways amicably the next summer. She and Robert Wagner started regular phone conversations that gradually rebuilt their bond. Their relationship took a significant turn when Robert Wagner invited Natalie to his Palm Desert home in California in January 1972. Their relationship quickly blossomed. They made their first public appearance together at the Academy Awards in April 1972. The couple then traveled to New York and boarded the Queen Elizabeth II for England. The couple remarried on July 16, 1972, almost exactly 10 years after their divorce. The intimate ceremony took place aboard a 55-foot yacht called the Ramblin' Rose, anchored off Malibu's Paradise Cove. Unlike their first wedding, only their closest friends, family members, and their daughters attended. This second marriage seemed, for a time, more grounded, more stable. They had a daughter together, Courtney, adding another layer to their blended family. They were a prominent fixture in Hollywood society, hosting parties, seemingly settled and content. However, as is often the case in the world of fame and fortune, the outward appearance didn't always reflect the full picture. The Thanksgiving weekend of 1981 became a tragic milestone that changed how people saw Robert Wagner's relationships forever. A holiday getaway aboard their yacht, Splendor with friend Christopher Walken, ended under mysterious circumstances that still raise questions decades later. The atmosphere aboard the Splendor that fateful weekend was heavy with tension. Wagner felt threatened by Walken's presence and saw a growing connection between the actor and his wife. This created an uncomfortable mood as the days went by. The yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, noticed Robert Wagner's increasingly possessive behavior toward Natalie. His jealousy grew stronger as he watched Natalie and Walken's professional discussions about their current film project, Brainstorm. Wagner's unease came from what he saw as Walken's focus on Natalie's career goals instead of her family life. Things got worse throughout the weekend. Robert Wagner's frustration boiled over when he broke a wine bottle, a clear sign of the emotional storm brewing underneath. Natalie went to the master cabin after the argument. She was clearly shaken by the confrontation. Several people said she wanted to leave the yacht right away. She asked Davern to help her get back to shore, which showed how uncomfortable she felt. Robert Wagner tells a different story. He says he and Walken calmed down and kept talking, only to find Natalie missing later that night. In spite of that, Investigators who looked at the case again decades later questioned this version of events. Natalie's death that night remains one of Hollywood's biggest mysteries, forever tied to Robert Wagner's most famous relationship. Robert Wagner's memoir, published in 2008, is perhaps the most significant source of his revelations. In it, he speaks with profound love and enduring pain about Natalie. He describes her as the love of my life, acknowledging the depth of their connection, while also openly discussing the complexities and challenges of their relationship. This is a key revelation from him, confirming the intensity of their bond, but admitting it wasn't always a smooth fairy tale. He writes about Natalie's anxieties and insecurities, painting a picture of a sensitive woman who carried the weight of her early stardom and the pressures of her career. Crucially, he confirms her lifelong fear of dark water, a detail that makes her presumed actions that night seem even more baffling and tragic. This acknowledgement from Robert Wagner validates a long-known aspect of her personality that becomes chillingly relevant to her death. Robert Wagner also addresses the tensions that existed within their marriage, particularly as Natalie sought challenging roles and worked on projects that sometimes took her away from their life together or introduced new dynamics. He touches on her work on Brainstorm, the film she was making at the time of her death, and the presence of her co-star, Christopher Walken, who was invited aboard the Splendor for the weekend. Los Angeles County Sheriff's investigators named Robert Wagner as a person of interest in 2018, almost 40 years after Natalie Wood's tragic drowning. The case took an unexpected turn when authorities reopened the investigation 7 years earlier, and the accidental drowning transformed into something that might be more sinister. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Lieutenant John Carina revealed investigators tried to talk to Wagner 2 or 3 times since they reopened the case in 2011. Wagner turned them down each time through his representatives, Carina said directly. His reluctance stood in stark contrast to his behavior during the original 1981 investigation, where he gave statements to authorities. The investigators made it clear that despite naming Wagner as a person of interest, they had not been able to prove this was a homicide, nor been able to prove that this was an accident either. Lieutenant Carina explained that the person of interest had no legal significance, as Wagner was not a suspect and they were not pressing charges on anyone. How did Robert Wagner reveal information through his reaction to this? His legal team issued statements strongly reiterating his innocence and cooperation, though the extent of his cooperation has also been questioned by investigators. His public appearances sometimes touched on the pain of the ongoing scrutiny, but he largely maintained a position of having told the truth as he knew it. His continued life and career, under the shadow of this designation, are a form of silent revelation about the burden he carries and his chosen method of dealing with it, largely by trying to move forward while maintaining his innocence. Despite Robert Wagner's memoir and statements, and despite the reopened investigation, many fundamental questions remain unanswered. Questions that hinge on the details only those on the yacht know. What was the exact nature and intensity of the argument that night? Robert Wagner's account is less explosive than Davern's. Why did Natalie go out onto the deck, possibly to the dinghy, in the middle of the night, given her fear of water? Was she trying to leave? Was she upset? Was she securing something? If Robert Wagner didn't hear anything, how could that be, given the confines of the yacht? This is a point investigators have reportedly questioned. What were the specific actions of everyone on board in the moments before her disappearance? Robert Wagner's revelations offer his perspective, his truth as he presents it. He acknowledges the drinking, the argument, his failure to immediately notice she was gone, and his enduring guilt over the circumstances that led to her death. The argument, the setting. He accepts responsibility for the circumstances but denies responsibility for the fall itself. The drama and secrets persist because Robert Wagner's account, while providing his deeply personal viewpoint and some crucial details, exists alongside conflicting testimony, official actions, and physical evidence. Robert Wagner's enduring silence on certain specifics, or his consistent denial of key aspects of other accounts, is in itself a form of revealed information. It reveals his chosen narrative, his position, and the boundaries of what he is willing or able to share about that night. He has opened the door slightly with his memoir and public statements, acknowledging the pain and complexity, but the full, universally accepted truth of how Natalie Wood died remains elusive, leaving Robert Wagner forever linked to the mystery at the heart of this Hollywood tragedy. His life after that night is a testament to his resilience, but also to the indelible mark left by the secrets and unanswered questions surrounding the woman he called the love of his life. The death of Natalie Wood irrevocably changed Robert Wagner's life. The immediate aftermath was consumed by grief, investigation, and the first wave of public speculation. Yet, Robert Wagner, a survivor in the unpredictable world of Hollywood, found a way to continue. Remarkably, shortly after the tragedy, he returned to work on his highly successful television series, Heart to Heart. While some might question the timing, for many actors, work can be a form of therapy, a way to channel grief and maintain a semblance of normalcy amidst chaos. He continued Heart to Heart until 1984 and remained a constant presence on television and in films thereafter, albeit often in supporting roles or guest appearances. He remarried in 1990 to actress Jill St. John, a relationship that has endured. They had known each other for many years, even during his marriages to Natalie. This marriage marked a new chapter, one seemingly more stable and private, far removed from the intense public scrutiny of his life with Natalie. However, the shadow of November 29, 1981, never truly left him. With the publication of his memoir in 2008, he reopened the conversation, offering his side of the story and confronting the painful memories. And when the investigation was officially reopened in 2011, the questions, the speculation, and the media attention returned with full force. His designation as a person of interest in 2018 was a heavy burden to carry, especially in his later years. Despite the persistent questions and the cloud hanging over him, Robert Wagner has maintained a degree of public composure and continued to work occasionally. He has focused on his family and his life away from the most intense glare of the spotlight. His later years reflect a man who has achieved incredible professional longevity but remains inextricably linked to a tragic mystery, a constant reminder of the night that shattered his world and left an enduring question mark on his legacy. Robert Wagner's career is a testament to resilience and charm. Spanning over 6 decades, he achieved lasting fame as a leading man in both film and television. Yet, despite this impressive professional legacy, his name is, for many, forever intertwined with the tragic death of Natalie Wood. His revelations, shared years later in his memoir and public statements, offer a crucial perspective, a glimpse into the complexities of their marriage and the horror of that night, filtered through his own memory and pain. But even these insights cannot fully dispel the mystery. The story of Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood remains one of Hollywood's most compelling and heartbreaking dramas, a reminder that behind the glamour, some secrets remain buried, and some questions may never be fully answered, leaving a permanent mark on the lives they touched.